You can't talk your way out of trauma. Before I get a load of therapists and psychotherapists and counsellors jumping down my throat, let me just caveat this. I believe that there's a talking part to this, and that's certainly an important part of my role when working with patients. But I'm going to get into the neuroscience here. Of course, talking therapies are very powerful, and I think sometimes I was having a conversation with a peer of mine that sometimes in the somatic world we can feel like everything else is a waste of time, and somatic is the only way to go, and it's very of the moment. But certainly talking can do something. However, if we look at trauma as being an overwhelm of the system and something which is too much, too fast, too soon, not just I need to talk this difficult emotional situation through, or I'm going through a divorce right now and I really feel like I want some support. Yeah, absolutely. That's not trauma. That's just a very difficult experience of grief or difficult challenges. But when it comes to trauma, which is embedded in the nervous system and the autonomic nervous system, along with other parts of our physiology, trauma, almost by definition, sort of doesn't really get to the higher centers in the brain very much. And it's certainly the higher centers' involvement will be very altered as a result, because its brainstem, midbrain, amygdala is on fire. That's very alert and responds differently. And the hippocampus, which is a filter center which decides how it's going to relay information on, the activity when we look at brain scans in the amygdala and the hippocampus is altered when we come to trauma. And in fact, so are the higher cerebral cortex areas as well. If we're going to deal with trauma, we need to be dealing with the nervous system and the nervous system's responses. And I talk a lot about the fork in the road. If the body was overwhelmed and we had to go into fight or flight or freeze because getting away wasn't an option, we come up against the traumatic event here, and then we take this fork in the road to cope. It may not have been something which was able to be within the capacity. You may have seen one of my other videos recently talking about the capacity that we have within the nervous system and rivers, and have a little look at that one, rivers and canoes and trauma vortex. If we're outside of capacity, then the body has to do something to cope, and it's not processed. This is where things like EMDR and reprocessing come in, or other trauma tools to help us to reprocess. This is why these terms are there. It's because it's saying we need a second bite at the cherry here. We need to be able to help the body to reprocess something which it could not in the moment of the overwhelm and the traumatic event. And so if we've got this trauma vortex and we need to go back into that, then we need to be able to understand what the nervous system did with it. And then go, right, hang on a minute, can we slow it down? Another big common theme, in all of the trauma work that you'll hear me speak about. Can we slow it down? Can we bring the vagus nerve online? Can we support the system in some way that it feels safety in the nervous system, so that we can then maybe help the system renegotiate it, so it's able to then complete a process in a way that it might have chosen to do. And so it's a nervous system response, and many of these things are not conscious anyway. I mean, when people say, well, you can talk your way out of this, there's actually good body of evidence that for trauma, and I'm talking about a specific thing, actually talk therapy can make it worse. Because if all we're doing is we're talking about it, but we're not actually slowing it down, titrating, we're not doing it in the right way, then all we can be doing is actually just reliving the experience and then re-imprinting exactly where the patient got overwhelmed. And if you're not tracking their physiology and go, okay, let's pause at this point, can we just slow this down? Then all you're doing is you're just re-traumatizing the system, and you're embedding that nervous pathway, that nervous system pathway. We want neuroplastic change. And again, I've done a video on neuroplasticity recently, so if you're not sure about that and you want to look it up, please have a little search on the channel for my video on neuroplasticity. We want to catch the fork in the road and help it have a different outcome so that it can be processed and reintegrated. And people talk about trauma being stuck in the body, and there's a great question, isn't it? It probably doesn't actually just sit over here. What we've got are patterns that when a certain stimulus comes up, then the body has a process by which it puts tension into the body or does something or doesn't do something. And that's what it just repeats because it's learned behavior. And so, given that we need to be working in brainstem and middle brain a lot, and we need to be negotiating how the body dealt with something in a way that it didn't once, that really is subcortical and can't just be dealt with by talking. Hi, I'm Roger. Thanks for watching the video. Hope you enjoyed it. And don't forget to hit the like and subscribe buttons.